Hi, I wanted to come on tonight just to share a quick video. Um, if I had to title the video, it would be called Rooting Out Rejection. And I journaled it a few days ago because I was reading this book to my son. Um, it's called Seeds and Trees by Brandon Walden. And I thought to myself, after reading the book, and then I thought to myself when I had first began my healing journey, one of the things I had done was to go to therapy, and I had took a therapy session that was called Renaming Rejection. And I think her name was Dr. Joy who taught that session, I believe. But one of the things that she had like pointed out was that to in situations where you may have felt like you have been rejected or you receive feedback from an experience or something that didn't really kind of go your way. One of the things that she said was, instead of getting offended, to take it as a learning experience, and if some of the feedback applies to you, take it and work on it and just use it as a learning tool to move on to your next experience. Don't just take the offense to it and carry it on. Um, so, my quote says, the problem with a lot of people is that if they get rejected by a job they want or a person they like, their self confidence becomes shattered in an instant because they don't have an abundance mindset. You see, when you have an abundance mindset and you get rejected, it's okay because you tell yourself, tomorrow I will find 10 other jobs or I will meet 10 other new people. You always have possibilities. Idris Alba said that. So, but the reason that quote kind of stuck out to me was because he mentioned the whole abundance mindset, and I'll touch on it a little bit at the end of the video, but that's why it stuck out to me. So yeah, I took the therapy session called Renaming Rejection. And then I was reading this book, and I'll just read the beginning of the book here, sort of quickly so I don't make the video too long. But I thought it was very, very powerful because it brought me back to when my feelings of rejection first started. And it brought me back to thinking about my own childhood. Um, and I didn't even realize that that's where it first started. And so, one thing I'm learning from reading my own books and things like that, um, but then it's also reading these books to my son. I'm learning through that. Like, I'm learning from the books that I'm teaching, that I'm reading to him. And it brings back things that I have forgotten, and things that I didn't really think were significant, but it actually shows me that that's where some of my seeds and things that I had carried on were planted. So, yeah. In the book, he says, Seeds and Trees is a tale about the power of words. This story is dear to me. It's probably because it is my story. It follows a young prince who grows up giving and gathering seeds, words. He faithfully plants and waters those seeds daily until they grow to become very, very powerful trees. Later, with the help of a friend, he is able to cut down and uproot the bad ones and then replant good seeds in their place. Now, I do not mean to seem presumptuous, but I think it may be your story as well. If you are a parent, a teacher, a therapist, or an advocate that works with children, I encourage you to do the following. Take a moment and do a self audit. Think back to where your insecurities first started. Think back to when you first began to doubt that you are good enough. Take a moment to think back to when you first doubted whether you belong. What would your life have looked like without ever believing those lies? Now look beside you at the child in your care. Take a moment and think what it would be like if he or she what it would be like for he or she to grow up without those same lies governing their belief system. I believe our words can hurt and our words can heal. This is why I wrote Seeds and Trees. It is my sincere hope that the words and the process outlined in this book will encourage the childlike part of each of our hearts to be healed. It's my hope that the words and beautiful illustrations will guide you um, and through a process that will bring you hope, encouragement, and freedom. He says, if you are a child reading this book on your own, I hope you come to believe that you are enough, that you are loved, and that you belong. If anyone tells you differently, what they are saying is simply not true. Be careful what you water, for it will surely grow. So this book, again, it's by Brandon Walden, and it's called Seeds and Trees. Now, the reason why this book stuck out to me was because in the moment when I was reading it to my son, I didn't really remember my own experience. But then as I read it again, I said to myself, well, I remember. So for me, my experience and my feelings of being rejected started from when I was like a small child, because I can remember, I don't know what age, but I can remember my mom telling this story about my birth. And she would tell it in a joking way. She would say it in a joking way, but I had heard it so many times throughout my childhood. And so the thing was is that when she was pregnant with me, the doctor had told her I was a boy. So my dad, my mom, everybody thought I was going to be a boy. But I ended up I was a preemie. I was like very, very early and barely even survived. And when I came out, I was a girl. And my dad said, oh, send her back. And so, but my mom always told it in a joking way. But I had heard it so many times, right? And I had no idea that those were my beginning seeds of feeling rejected. And then to add to that, now that I'm understanding the importance of having a father in the home and what, you know, the lack of not having a father present has actually done to many of us in terms of just our upbringing, and I come to understand how vital it is to have two parents in the home. And so now that I'm understanding that crucial part, it's like to hear that, to have heard that story so many times, whether it was said in a joking way or not, those were my initial seeds of feeling rejected. And so I felt rejected by the person who actually should have been my first love, my father. But then it's like the seeds of the story and the joke were planted, but then it was reinforced by my father actually not being present through majority of my childhood. So yeah, and one key thing that I'm taking away from my journey here is that as I'm reading, whether it's children books for my son or my own reading material, it's like I'm learning more and more about where my wounds first started. But then also too, it's making me more mindful and aware of my behavior, my language, and how I'm speaking to him, so that I don't come across to him and plant those seeds in him. So yeah, yeah. So I just thought I would share, but and this all came from reading this book to my son the other night, and then it brought me to an experience where I felt rejected, where my seed, the root of my rejection first started, and then I thought to myself, okay, well, I did take the therapy session, but even when I had taken the therapy session, which was last year, I didn't even remember this whole story from my childhood. And, it's just making me more aware of why I made some of the decisions I've made. Because when you feel like you you have emotions of feeling rejected a lot and that you don't belong, then there are so many things that are created out of that. Like, you find yourself in relationships that you're treated less than what you deserve. You tolerate unacceptable behavior in situations. Sometimes you might not even seek out opportunity because you feel like you're not worthy of an opportunity, or you might not seek it out because you feel like you're not, that you will be rejected. And that can go with friendships and so many things, right? So yeah, I just thought I would share. But one of the things too I thought about, because in the book it was talking about seeds being words, and I also thought about it in terms of the seeds being words, but then once they're watered, like the negative seeds that we carry on, that they're watered, and we water those things because we start to believe them and we start to live by some of the things we've heard continuously through our life, and things like that. It creates these weeds. And when I really looked up like what a weed actually does, like one of the functions of it, it says that weeds, they rob the plants of water, nutrients, and if they grow large enough, they can rob them of sunlight. And I thought to myself, this is what happens so much, like, in our life, if we don't recognize that we've had those emotions of not feeling worthy and not feeling good enough, because there's so many other things that we create from our life from that, which are not good, and it doesn't really matter if you were like a child experiencing, where you were abandoned and you didn't have anybody to raise you, or you had to raise yourself, or you grew up in a one parent household, the other parent left, or you know, whatever the situation, or being in an abusive household as a child. But then it also can be too an adult in an abusive relationship and being physically and verbally abused, and having that torment every day and that torture to feel like you're not good enough and that there's something wrong with you, and to be treated below your value, consistently. That really molds and changes a person after so long. And so yeah, um side note, if you are in an abusive relationship, get out. Get out, because nothing is worth your sanity. um Nothing is worth you living your life to be made to feel like you're not good enough. Nothing is worth that. And God didn't create you to be in that position and to suffer. um Yeah, and if you're someone like me, to where those seeds were planted quite young and now you're realizing you do have some healing to do, and maybe you didn't realize it, just seek out the resources. Therapy, um, supportive group of some capacity, just some help, because it's it's a lie to think that you're not worthy enough when you're here. You were quite literally born to take up space. When you were born, that's exactly what happened. You took up space on the earth here, and you were brought here for a reason. So, um and I can't be you, and you can't be me or another person. You are uniquely you. So it's about figuring out what you were brought here to do and to contribute to the world. So you are good enough, and you are worthy, and you're worthy of good relationships, love, um, and all beautiful things. So to believe that you're worth less is a lie. Um, yeah, and so just a couple of notes I had jotted down so I don't get off track. But it says that, well, I said that we share what we are and we give what we have. So the seed sown matter because that's what we tend to keep planting if we don't pull up the weeds. And that's exactly what the saying is that hurt people. And oftentimes we're just operating from an unhealed space. And one thing too I've learned from carrying on this whole feeling of rejection and not feeling worthy enough of many things, and it's because if you carry that feeling, I know for me, I lacked like hope for better because it just, I thought in a lot of situations that things were just the way they were and that I wasn't deserving of something better. And it's it's not a good way to be because you can find yourself in situations and environments that don't even, like, you have no business being in, like no business at all. So, and I think that God created us. He thought enough about you and I to create us. And the fact that you're still living and breathing, that's proof that there's something for you to do. And it's not to be suffering or to be miserable every day and to have somebody beat you down and to have some, whether that's physically or verbally. You weren't made to just endure abuse in that capacity. So, yeah. Um, and then it's also too not really fair to not heal and then we carry that on and we bring that to other people. That's not also the right way to go either. And um, a couple of the other things that I had just taken from this book and everything was that I understand that the closer I get to aligning myself with God's ways and seeking, the more I see resources and people placed into my path to help me. And one of the examples that I can think of is that when I initially started my journey in terms of like feeling like I wanted to get baptized and feeling like I wanted to become interested in God and, my celibacy, and I started, so many other things, journaling and all these things, right? There started to be people put into my path to sort of help me on my journey. And I understand now the importance of it because the whole point was to help and support me to heal. And I heard Pastor Stephanie Ike. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, but Pastor Stephanie, she's with the Potter's House. And one of the things that I heard her say, which hit me so hard, was she said that God can hear the cries of the next generation. He's not just thinking about what's happening now. He can hear the cries of the next generation. And he's already anticipating what they will need. And so it's up to us to get in position to be able to help the next generation. And it brought me to this whole point of like why it's so important to heal from whatever it is. And we've all been through so many different things, and some worse than others. And, it can be definitely a lot to even come to the place of wanting to heal, but it's necessary because it's important that you heal so you can help someone, because we weren't created just for ourselves. that wasn't the point of why we're here, is what I'm understanding as well. And yeah, when I heard her say that, I said to myself, yeah, I didn't have a father present as a child. You know, he was very shadowy presence, right? But at the time, God already accounted for that, because I'm now in my 30s, and I've had so much support, I feel like, and resources placed into my path, pastors and things like, and to help me on my journey, on my healing journey here. So God already factored that in. He already factored in that my dad wasn't going to be there, and that I wasn't going to have, I was going to go through certain things, and you know, some storms I caused on my own, right? Just being out in the world. But some things that were done to us, some things we don't have any control over. And he already, once you come to the place where you seek him, he already factors in what you're missing and what you need help with and what you need support with. And that's exactly is what's been my experience so far. So, and I really have come to, at first I was really battling with my whole journey here, and really just it was really tough at first, but now I'm starting to understand that the more I sort of go on my journey here and discover more about myself, discover more about God, and understand and in uprooting some of the things that had taken root from when I was a child and things I had carried on, it's like I'm understanding the importance of that I heal through my stuff, and you know, become whole, so that I can be a better mom to my son, but then be a better person in the world, and to be more of who God made me to be. And it's also thinking about what am I leaving behind, because there's this time now, this generation that's coming up is so different than what even when I grew up. And you know, I have, whether you have a child or not, it's like the next generation is going to need a lot of help. um, we can already see some of the things that are starting to happen. So yeah, I thought that was so profound what she said, that that God can hear the cry of the next generation. And so please, if you need to heal, just take the first step, because um, the whole point is for us to help others. So I just thought I would share Rooting Out Rejection from this book, Seeds and Trees by Brandon Walden. So yeah, thank you, Brandon, for this book. It was really a good read for my son and for myself, actually. So yeah, you are good enough. You are worthy. There's a purpose for your life. You were not just created just because, and you don't have to stay in a situation where you're feeling like you're suffering and that you're being mistreated and abused. Please seek out help. Please find resources. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I just thought I would share that. So thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you in the next video.